Well, you didn't want a quiet start to the season, did you? Yes, hello and welcome to this week's Women's Football Chat. My name is Chris Gadsby. I'm here every Thursday at 6 p.m, bringing you the very latest from the third and fourth tiers of women's football here in England. That's the FA Women's National League. And the start of the season is now just 3 days away, although that is under heavy dispute as well. We will get on to all of that later on in the show. But firstly and most importantly, a huge congratulations to the Lionesses for making it through to Sunday's final. Hopefully on next week's show, we'll be talking about England, the World Cup winners. That final 11 o'clock on Sunday. And as I said, we'll get into far more detail about all of that in the coming moments here on this show. Strap yourselves in because there is an awful lot to go through on this week's show. We have 4 managerial changes, the opening round of fixtures, and that huge discussion, plus now a petition from the FAWNL players. But we are going to start with the managerial changes from these past 7 days, and we're going to start up north with Chester Street Town, who says, with immediate effect, the clubs are sad to announce current manager Mark Kelly will be stepping away from his management role with the women's first team. So what they're saying here, this is a decision made solely by Mark himself. He takes on a new role within the club, so he's staying at the club as head of women's football, where he will continue to drive the club forward behind the scenes. We would like to thank Mark for everything he has done on and off the pitch to get the girls back into the FA Women's National League, where they belong. Both the club and the players really appreciate his hard work, time and effort, especially when the club was going through tough times 2 years ago. Mark stuck with the girls as he believed in their potential and always said he would get them back where they belong. The ladies section at the club is definitely going in the right direction, and a lot of this is down to the hard work of Mark. Having him still involved as head of women's football is something we're over the moon about. Thank you for your hard work on and off the pitch. So that is Mark leaving, and then they also announced the new manager of Phil Hubbard, who is currently head coach of the women's section as well as head of football development, and he has been appointed as new manager of the women's first team. Club chairman Joe Bernardson said asking Phil to take over as manager was an easy decision. He's been involved with coaching the ladies for the last 2 years and is a natural replacement. Phil himself said, when Mark asked me to take over as manager of the girls, he couldn't say no. What we have created as a team and what we have done so far is a big accomplishment. We have to look forward a step at a time, and the next step is against Durham this Sunday. The lasses and the club are over the moon with the appointment of Phil as their new manager. So, new manager for Chester Street Town. Also, new manager for Chatham Town. Dan Logue has departed Chatham Town with immediate effect. He offered his resignation yesterday in order to pursue an opportunity within the women's professional game. As a club, we wish Dan every success with his new venture and will commence the process of finding the right person who shares our visions and values. So that is where the situation is regarding the Chatham Town manager, because he left, and then they got an interim manager in, should I say, in Shazius Corden, who has agreed to take the reins as interim manager. He's held many coaching roles within the women's professional game. He will bring his wealth of experience and stability to the team as they prepare for the National League Southern Premier Division opener. So that's Chatham Town. And Chester Street Town we now go to FC United of Manchester, who have welcomed Jenny Swarbrick as women's team manager and community manager. So FC United is delighted to announce the appointment of Jenny Swarbrick as the new manager of the women's team and as our community manager. With an impressive background and a wealth of experience, Jenny brings a fresh perspective to the club, making her a significant addition in these dual roles. As FC United's first female football manager, Jenny's appointment represents a historic moment for the club and demonstrates its ongoing commitment to diversity and inclusion, while also highlighting the strides being made in women's football. With over 2 decades of experience in coaching and sport development, Jenny is more than qualified to lead FC United's women's team to new heights. Now, her journey in the football world includes roles ranging from grassroots to professional. She served as under-21s head coach at Liverpool. She led the team to Women's Super League Academy Plate in April and supported multiple players in their transition into the first team and development of several members of the current England Women's World Cup squad. She has a UEFA A licence, but she's also going to be driving the club's initiatives to engage with and support the local community. Over the past year, FC United has laid the groundwork for this crucial role, and it's designed with kind of close alignment with the club's community commitments and funders' expectations. So she's got experience as well as the department manager for community sports and health programs at Bolton Arena. So it sounds like they're really going on this community aspect as well as on the pitch for FC United of Manchester. So sounds like it's a strong appointment for them as they also return back into the FAWNL. Right, finally then, we will go to the Southern Premier Division again, kind of jumping a bit back and forth there, and we're going to go to Oxford United, who narrowly missed out on winning the Southern Premier Division last season, and their manager Liam Gilbert is to leave the club after 5 successful years, culminating in a 3rd place finish last season in the Women's National League Southern Premier Division. You remember that was so close last season that any one of 3 teams could have taken that top spot going into the final day in the Southern Premier Division. He is to take up a full-time role with a Barclays Women's Championship club. And Oxford United would like to thank Liam for his hard work and dedication and wish him well for the future. The club is committed to the development of our women's teams, so George Anthony and Matt Parry will take over in the interim while the club look for a suitable replacement. So a couple of interim coaches there while Oxford look for a permanent replacement for Liam Gilbert. So it's very good for Liam, who's been able to progress up into the professional women's game and coach there. So great news for him there. Right, so those are all the managerial changes. Let's now move on and have a look at the fixtures that are coming up on Sunday. Football is back, and these are all extremely kind of very different times, a bit messy. You'll see what I will make a point of. I'll make it now and I'll make it throughout the next section. This is very much at the moment a fluid situation because of the final on Sunday. So as I am recording this, it is currently 9:30 on Thursday morning. The information I've got is to the best of my knowledge right at this present moment. By the time that this show comes out at 6 o'clock tonight, it may be very different. Do keep checking your team's social media channels for all of the latest information. It may well change between me recording now and the show coming out later. But we're going to start in the Northern Premier Division. Here are the fixtures for the opening day of the season. Derby County against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Huddersfield Town are taking on AFC Fylde. That is now a 4 p.m. kickoff, and the World Cup final is being shown at the Stafflex Arena before the Huddersfield Fylde game. So if you want to watch the final and that, you are able to have the day down at the Stafflex Arena. Liverpool Feds against Burnley at Jericho Lane. That's now kicking off at 2:30. Again, giving a bit of time there just between the World Cup finishing and the game starting. Newcastle United against Halifax is a 2 p.m. kickoff. Nottingham Forest against Stourbridge is a 4 p.m. kickoff at Grange Park. And again, similarly to Huddersfield Town, the final is being shown at Long Eaton there. So again, if you want to watch the final and the women's game, and obviously with a 4 o'clock start, if you're relatively local, you can watch the final, then travel down. Gives a chance for the players to watch the final in the clubhouse and then prepare for their own game, regardless of extra time or penalties. And West Bromwich Albion against Stoke City. That's at Valley Stadium, and that is a 3 p.m. kickoff. Again, very similar situation with that, just allowing for that more time. Southern fixtures then. Cardiff City against Ipswich Town, still a 2 p.m. kickoff, and given the 4.5 hour journey that Ipswich have got to make over to Cardiff, not really anything that a delayed kickoff can do about that one. Chatham Town against #United. That's a 2:30 p.m. kickoff, again with the final being shown at the sports ground for Chatham Town. Milton Keynes Dons against Oxford United at Stadium MK, normal 2 p.m. Plymouth Argyle against Billericay Town. Again, very long journey for Billericay Town. We'll go into all of that later on as well. A 2 p.m. start there at Coach Road. Portsmouth against Cheltenham Town, 2 p.m. at Wesley Park, and also 2 p.m. at Kilsby Lane between Rugby Borough and London Bees. That's the Southern Premier Division fixtures. Division 1 Midlands, Lincoln City against Notts County. This is at the LNER Stadium, which I would call Sincil Bank, and it's a 2:30 start with the game being shown prior to kick-off between Lincoln and Notts County in Division 1 Midlands. Northampton Town against Peterborough United, normal 2 p.m. kick-off as it stands at the moment, as it is between Sheffield and Loughborough Lightning. And Solihull Moors against Boldmere St Michael's at the Davidson's Law Arena. Sporting Cowser against Leafield Athletic, again 2 p.m. And Sutton Coldfield Town against Leek Town at the Central Ground, 2 p.m. Again, reiterating, check before you go to the game because this may well change. Some teams obviously had this planned in advance and jumped straight on the back of it. I think Forest were the first team to put something out, and they'd put something out within 10 minutes of the semi-final finishing, something like that, which is it was obviously planned in advance. Some teams might have to have a few more arrangements. Some teams might not be able to because the pitch is booked later on in the day. There's that to consider as well. Division 1 North, Barnsley against Chorley at Sheffield Olympic Legacy Park. Chester Street Town against Durham Sestra at Moor Park. FC United of Manchester against Doncaster Rovers Bells. Leeds United against Stockport County. Middlesbrough against Norton and Stockton Ancients. That is a 3 p.m. kickoff at the Matt Pert Group UK Stadium. So again, delayed. And York City against Hull City at the I2I Stadium. A normal 2 p.m. time, but the final is going to be shown at the stadium. So they haven't delayed the kickoff, but you can watch both if you head down there. You'll be able to watch the final and then straight away afterwards watch the opening game of the FAWNL season. Division 1 South East. So we have here the Mel Group Stadium, AFC Sudbury against Norwich City, a 2:30 kickoff with the final being shown at the club. Cambridge City against Cambridge United at the Newcroft, 2 p.m. Haywards Heath Town against Ashford Town, still a 2 p.m. kickoff, but the final is being shown at the Hanbury Stadium prior to the game. London Seaward against Actonians at Oakside, that's a 3 p.m. kickoff now, and the final is being shown at the club. Worthing against AFC Wimbledon, 3 p.m. kickoff there to give you time to get down. And of course, Queen's Park Rangers against Chesham United isn't until Wednesday, so there is no kind of clash there with the World Cup final. The only sides that moved their opening day fixture to midweek. And again, that is something that we will come on to very shortly. Finally then, Division 1 Southwest, Bridgewater United against Exeter City, 2 p.m. Keynsham against Maidenhead United, still 2 p.m. Portishead against Torquay, same normal time. Sale City against AFC Bournemouth. Southampton Women's against Moneyfields, all the normal kickoff time. The only one that has changed, Swindon Town against Abingdon United at Foundation Park, a 2:45 p.m. kickoff, that one. And again, the final is being shown at the club. So those are the opening day fixtures for the FA Women's National League on Sunday. Of course, I haven't got form guides and stuff to go in and tell you about, but those are the opening day fixtures. So now it has come to the point of the show, and this will probably take up a decent chunk of the show. There are so many factors and viewpoints involved in this that the opening day of the FAWNL season clashes with the World Cup final. So to give you some of the timings throughout the course of Sunday, the final starts at 11 o'clock. So if the final finishes in the normal 90 minutes, it will finish at around 1 o'clock. If there is then extra time, you're talking 1:30, 25 to 2. And if there is a penalty shootout, well, the Australia-France penalty shootout took almost 20 minutes because they had 20 penalties to go through with that as well. You could be easily talking 5 to 2. Not particularly suitable when you've got games starting at 2 o'clock. So there are so many different factors to go in with this, but let's start with at the very beginning, which was at the AGM. Now, everything I know from the AGM is all what I have been told by people, because there are no minutes produced from the AGM because it's a private thing. That's a different factor entirely for me. So what we have been told, and I suggested this before, like, do all the games get postponed on the opening day because they were local? And I was then told that no, it wasn't going to be postponed. Now, the clubs have said that they raised the issue at the AGM and it didn't kind of land any importance. The league made it clear that the games were starting on the 20th. That was the league, according to the clubs, that was the league standpoint. The club said, we don't like it. The league said, it's happening. So that was from the club's side of things. Then you've got the league side of things. And I asked the FA Women's National League chair, Carol West, about this the other night. And, well, in fact, it was last night. And she said that the clubs were given the option 2 months ago to request to play or not on the 20th. They opted unanimously to kick off on that date, knowing the final was also on the 20th on Sunday. Clubs were given additional options, including playing midweek to keep the Sunday free, which QPR and Chesham have done in their game, or moving kick-off, which some teams have also done. Some are using the opportunity as a promotional event for their club, which is a point I will come on to shortly. The vast majority of clubs have made requests and had them granted according to their preferences. Clubs were given a choice, some took it and some didn't. It's a shame the 99.9% of requests that were granted aren't being shouted about as much as the ones that are obviously keeping things as they are. So that was the league point of view. League said clubs were given the choice. Club said, we'll do it like this. And the club said we weren't given a choice. So it's kind of a who do you believe situation from that. And I would let you make your own minds up on that. I'm just presenting what I have been told from both parties in this current situation. So there are so many different avenues to go down with this, and the players are clearly unhappy. Now, I will start then with the petition that the FAWNL players have started to move all of the games. So they have started a petition on change.org, which, as I am speaking at the moment, has just ticked past 600 signatures. Now, there are roughly, and I say here roughly, 25 on average players per team. Let's go with that. So 4 teams for 100 players. So you're talking 1,000, just shy of 2,000 players in the FAWNL, and that's now going to bug me. So I will 1,800 players in the FAWNL. So a third of all players, and I know it's not necessarily all players, but have signed this petition to move all of the games. And I will read their statement on the petition for you as well. The England Lionesses have reached the Women's World Cup final for the first time and become the first England football team to reach a World Cup final since the historic victory in 1966. As players in tier 3, 4, 5 and 6, now that's an important point to note as well. This is not just we are the FAWNL not caring about everybody else. They have included tiers 5 and 6, which is the regional leagues in this. We have fixtures scheduled for Sunday the 20th of August, the day of the final. The majority of players and staff across the leagues undertake their roles voluntarily, commit endless hours every week to support the women's game across England. We are asking the FA and leagues to allow clubs to postpone fixtures on this day to allow all players, coaches and club volunteers the opportunity to watch the final and enjoy this historic moment to the full. At the moment, we all have games. We have a lot of teams travelling large distances across the country, which means they will miss the opportunity to watch the final and cannot enjoy the day with friends and family. Players will watch the game kicking off at 11, then have to rush to get ready and warm up for afternoon games. We feel this is a risk to players' well-being. Along with the added emotion of a World Cup final, we feel concerned that the risk of injury will also be heightened. The FAWNL and other leagues are player-centred leagues, and we players should have the opportunity to request their fixture are postponed on Sunday. So the players are saying that, it's all right and this is going to make it sound like I'm kind of saying to those teams, no, I'm all right, and it's not that case. But if you take Huddersfield and Forest, just as a point, because they're the ones with the latest kickoff time at the minute, they are at home, and kickoff time, even if the game goes to extra time and penalties, will be 2 hours after the game finishes, which means they can watch the game in the clubhouse, then have the pre-match meal, have the pre-match tactics meeting, anything like that, and warm up in the normal time frame before a game, and that will then, it kind of, for one phrase, doesn't impact them, because the actual game bit, 2 hours before the kickoff, which is when they would normally be going into their game motion, is okay. If you've got a game that's still kicking off at 2 o'clock and it goes to extra time, you've got to take yourself out of that and go and warm up and miss the penalty shootout and all the rest of it. If there is a penalty shootout, we hope there's not. To then go and do your game. So it's not an ideal situation. Now, I want to bring up, because I did the research of it yesterday, I want to bring up the point that has been made about the travelling the distances across the country, because it is an important point. So I yesterday did, and it isn't perfect because I can only go from club ground to club ground. This doesn't take into account travel of players to the club to then get the coach, or whenever they get the coach from. But I asked Andy Fisher, the manager of Stourbridge, how early before a game, I didn't want to just pluck a figure out there, how early before a game do you want to arrive on a normal game? And he said 90 minutes. So if we take that as a given for everybody, just for argument's sake, I looked up what the typical travel times were for tier 3. I didn't do tier 4 because they are generally more local, but the point still stands. So if we take, for example, Stourbridge to Forest, because that's the one I've got a definitive figure for, it's an hour and a half, and again, that's by car, not by coach, but an hour and a half, plus the 90 minutes that you want to get there before the game. You're leaving at 1 o'clock for that Forest game, which means that if it goes past 90 minutes, you can't watch it unless you get a coach with like TV and Wi-Fi and all the rest of it. Halifax to Newcastle, 2 hours, plus 90 minutes, 3.5 hours. For a 2 p.m. kickoff, that's leaving at 10:30. You're leaving before the game's even started. Ipswich to Cardiff, 4.5 hours, plus 90 minutes, 6 hours. For a 2 o'clock start, that's leaving at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I can completely understand where the players are coming from, and if you believe what the league said, and again, I'm just reporting what the league has told me, and that clubs were given the choice, and some clubs are using it as a promotional opportunity, and some have delayed the kickoff, and one game has been moved into the midweek. Everyone seems to be shouting at each other. Now, the club's using it as a promotional opportunity. I can completely get that as well. If you think from a club point of view, if you can get even 100 people, I mean, maybe even 50 people through the gate at 10:30 to watch the final, and they will be buying food, buying drink. It makes more at the ground. It possibly makes more for the club because the ground is happy, the club's happy. Can completely get that. I really can. And it feels as though it's maybe down to the clubs to move things around and what have you. Now, the other thing that was clear, that was said from the FAWNL, and it may make it clear that it's above what the FAWNL board has been able to say, is that the FA guidance is that fixtures are played this Sunday. So if the FA is saying they need to start this Sunday, how much sway does the FAWNL have on that? So that's another point to consider. Again, and I mentioned it very briefly earlier, the clubs that don't own their ground, and most of them don't, are they able to delay a kickoff? Is there another group of people that have booked the pitch for 4:30, 5 o'clock? That means you can't start the women's game at 3 and give people the extra time. There is that to consider. And then I have had a lot of people, and thank you to everyone who has been commenting on Twitter and messaging me, is that, I mean, Jeff, for example, here, our match day program's already printed. Has food been purchased? If it's a ground that doesn't have, if it's a ground that's very basic in its terms of its facilities, it has kind of the bare minimum, has food already been purchased for the snack bar? Has post-game hospitality food already been purchased that they can't then cancel? And it's, Jason says he thinks it'd be best for the league to postpone all games, but then, coach hire, is that necessarily refundable? Hotel expenses, are they necessarily refundable? If it is a team that has gone and stayed in a hotel, for example. Many, as Andrew says here, many FAWNL players will have to watch the Women's World Cup final on coaches and in cars as they travel to game. And again, Nick says the same thing with coaches. It's not, if they've hired coaches, it's not necessarily always refundable. Same with the, when games get postponed because of the weather, I suppose it's a similar situation. But it's a bit of a mess. And I think having players who... The fact that we've got the biggest league, and I say that in terms of teams and organisation, not being able to watch the World Cup final, the women in the World Cup final, and even take out the fact that it's the women, if you put in just the fact that it's the first time England have got to a World Cup final, it's difficult because I'm trying to look other stuff up on my computer here as well. It's the first time that England in any form have got to a World Cup final. And the fact that women's football and the teams, the young girls that go and watch these teams and the players that are 16, 17 who are in these teams and wanting to, look up to these players and get involved. We're all trying to grow the game, and the Carney report about growing the game and all the rest of it, and then they can't watch the final. And it just seems a bit weird in many respects. So we'll just have to see what. I know nothing's going to happen between now and Sunday. Really, it's just down to the individual clubs. Really, if they postpone the game, if they're able to show it. But again, there are so many good points there. Programs, coach travel. What do the players actually want? What are the travel situations like? Can you actually get back on a coach? Can you book a pitch? Have you got other stuff? There are so many factors involved in this, and it strikes me that if the league were really as stubborn as the clubs are making out that the league was, and I say I wasn't at the AGM. You don't get to read the minutes of the AGM. I've got what clubs are telling me, and I've got what Carol West is telling me, and obviously they're two conflicting things. I will allow you to make your decision, as I said. If it was raised 2 months ago, and it was raised at the AGM, I mentioned it on this show. I said, well, it clashes with the World Cup final. It's not great. Now that there is no playoff final, because both of the winners from the Northern and Southern Premier Division are going up into the Championship, I am really struggling to see what the problem is with not playing games this weekend and finishing the season on the 12th of May rather than the 5th of May. Because there is no set date cut-off for the playoff final anymore. I understand, obviously, teams don't want, you can't push it towards the end of May and everything like that. Although, if you're in the playoff final, you do have to play a game in May anyway. It is inevitable, because it happens every year, that some teams will not get their 22 games in by the 5th of May. And some teams will have their final game of the season on the 7th of May anyway. Sorry, it was the 7th of May last year, on the 12th of May anyway. Because it happened last year, no doubt it will happen this year. And then some games that are still to be fitted in, if they make no difference to, because there's no prize money, if they make no difference to who goes up, who goes down, probably will end up just not being played, and oh well, we just didn't quite get it in. There was some in the Midlands, weren't there? Let me just bring that up again, because everybody played in the North and the South. In the Midlands, Wemtown against Sheffield never got played, and with Wemtown already down and Sheffield already safe, it didn't matter. Similar situation in South West. Moneyfields, Maidenhead, Larkhall and AFC Austell all only played 21. Made no difference to who stayed up and who went down. Teams are going to go further in cup competitions than others, so you can make games up that way. There will be postponed games, there will be county cup games where you are able to bring teams together and play games throughout the season. It just feels to me, and this is kind of my closing point really, is that whether you are on the club side, on the league side, whether you're able to get down and watch it, whether you're going to have to miss the opening day of the season because you'd rather watch the World Cup final, and I can completely get that, because the World Cup final happens once every 4 years, and your team being in the World Cup final from an England point of view has so far happened twice in 97 years since the very first World Cup final. So this is and let's hope it becomes more frequent, but on past record, this is a 1 in 45 year occasion. And the FA Women's National League is every year and every week. There is that as well. I wonder how attendances are going to be impacted. It's interesting. The Eastern Region Women's Football League also put out, I'll say this before I go as well, they emailed all the clubs earlier and they've listened to all of the fans. The Eastern Region will be allowing Sunday's fixtures to be postponed, but the FAWNL are not. Now, last season, let me find it again. There was... No, I've got to go later than there. The total attendance of the opening day of the season was 6,423. That was from 30 games, an average of 214 per game. We'll see what it is this season. But yeah, the Women's World Cup final, a 1 in 45 year event that's an England side, is in the World Cup final. I can see all sides of it. I just don't see... I just have the feeling that this is something which could have been avoided 2 months ago at the AGM. And yes, they are not ideal, and I can completely appreciate that they are not ideal for a lot of teams. But even if you can't extend past the 5th of May, although inevitably it will, have an extra midweek game. Again, I know it's not ideal. I know teams sometimes struggle with midweek, but against the most local side, I just feel something could have been agreed and arranged. And I think both sides of this discussion, the clubs and the FAWNL, have to take a bit of responsibility. Particularly, as I said, I think the clubs that, again, we're not partial, to every single club situation. But I think the clubs that are able to move kick-off and have the facilities to show the final have done so. And I just feel like the clubs could well get together here and move games to midweek or to a free Sunday. One thing that's jumping out at me, and it might work, it might not. Next week is the determining round of the Cup and the Plate. The first round of the Cup and the Plate is that final week on my board, 1st of October. So somewhere in September will have to be the preliminary round to get 36 teams down to 32. There could be a free slot in there as well, where you move 2 teams that maybe the team they were supposed to play is now in preliminary round action, and you can do a bit of moving a fixture that was in November into September, and then the free one that should be this Sunday could move into that. There's a lot of stuff that I think could be done. I'm not saying it's necessarily easy, but I think it would be very sad, and I think a lot of players will be very disheartened that they aren't able to watch the final, particularly if England, the Lionesses, Serena Wiegman and co win. That is my view. I'm aware that this show is now 45 minutes long, and the last 25 minutes of that has been talking about this situation. There are lots of sides to it, as we've mentioned throughout this show, but thank you very much for watching and or listening. If you are new to this, every Thursday at 6 p.m, this is, we're in the high 90s for episodes now. Every Thursday, 6 p.m, the Women's Football Chat, bringing you all of the very latest from the 3rd and 4th tiers of women's football in England. I'm also online at www.womensfootballchat.wordpress.com, and that is where you will find the links to take part in the Predictor League for this season. So predict the results 2 hours before kickoff and get points for everyone you get right, and we'll see who is the best at predicting the FAWNL. There's one for each of the leagues in the FAWNL across Tier 3 and Tier 4. You can take part in as many or as few as you want. And keep supporting your local women's football team. Thank you very much for watching and or listening to this week's Women's Football Chat. Come on, the Lionesses. Goodbye.